by the power of Grayskull.
Hello everybody, Mac here. Welcome back to the show. And I know that at the end of October, at the end of Bricktober, I said that I wanted to get back into one of the things that made this channel popular, and that was the Masters of the Universe Mega Constructs, because I have a lot of sets to take a look at. However, I don't know if you can tell by my voice, but very shortly after Halloween, like pretty much the day of Halloween, old Mac here got sick, and I'm still kind of getting over it. I got COVID again, and I'm just starting to get over it now, so I was kind of out of commission for about a week. But I still wanted to continue with sort of like a Movember, if you will, a focus on Masters of the Universe, probably a lot of G.I. Joe as well, but really a focus on Masters of the Universe, one of the things that was really popular with this channel. And just to get something out there fast, since I can't get to the scripted Mega Constructs videos yet, we do have this. And this is something that I was really happy about when I saw it. This is the 40th anniversary He-Man, most powerful man in the universe, Masterverse action figure. And the reason I was really happy about this when I saw it is because this is very much a callback to the original look for He-Man in the Masterverse line, which I don't have a lot of Masterverse figures. As a matter of fact, the only two I have right now are the New Eternia He-Man and Skeletor, link right there. And the main reason being is that it's just like, especially the Revelations figures just really didn't connect with me. It was nothing that was familiar to me. However, when they brought this one out, I was like, I gotta get this one. Even if I don't have anything else Masterverse, I gotta get this one. This is classic origin, whatever you want to call him, He-Man from the 80s. In 7-inch style, in Masterverse style. You can see all of the accessories that he has in here. You can see his battle harness up front. Everything just looks fantastic. And even the box. The box is a divergent from the Masterverse boxes, where we have this exploding red rocks all around it. It says Masterverse, where it would normally say Masters of the Universe across the top. We have the Masters of the Universe classic logo down here. And like He-Man, the most powerful man in the universe, how the vintage card backs and even the classics origins card backs now have a tagline for each character. On the side, we have the continuation of the exploding rocks, Eternia's moon, more planets up top, and on the back, we have some fantastic artwork with Grayskull up here in the top, great version of Battle Cat. I would love if we got a vintage Battle Cat in the Masterverse line. Like the one that came with Revelations isn't bad, but it's still not quite this. And then we have back here, 40 years ago, Mattel created Masters of the Universe, a world of space and sorcery, of fantasy and technology, and of He-Man, the hero who inspired children to discover the power within themselves. And that's so true. I remember 40 years ago. Okay, so without further ado, let's get this box open and let's take a look at Mattel Masters of the Universe He-Man 40th Anniversary Masterverse figure. All right, here he is, He-Man out of the box, and putting the tape measure to him, we can see that he is 7 3/8 of an inch to the very top of his head. Now taking a look at him, what else is there to say that this is He-Man in Masterverse form? This is the He-Man that probably a lot of us were looking for when the Masterverse series first came out. You can see that he has a much broader chest, a larger buck than what we've seen with other Masterverse figures. And like I said, I really only have one other Masterverse He-Man to compare him to, and that is this New Eternia He-Man. But you can even see just, in the breadth of his chest alone, you can see that he is much, much bulkier. Now the arms and the legs, I'm pretty sure are complete reuse, but the torso, even in the ab section right here, is completely new. We have a different belt, we have a different loincloth, we have new boots, it looks like. I kind of wish they would have used the new Eternia He-Man boots just because I really like that dagger in there. And he had a dagger in the mini comics originally in his boot, but I know this is supposed to be a Masterverse version of the original figure, right down to even the new different style of arm bracers that he has, that this is more in line with what the vintage figure was. So you can see the difference, even the size of the head. Like this one is lanky, but I feel like his proportions are a little bit more realistic. This one is just meat. He's just buff. And he has that classic power harness going on here, the gray, that fits perfectly around the buck, which you'll see that like it hides the articulation line perfectly. He has the Iron Cross on here. It latches in the back, and he has the hook for sheathing his sword, which the vintage figure did not have. We just kind of shoved it down into the back of the harness, and I'm fairly convinced with us doing that, that's why the cartoon had him sheathe it in the back as well. Now we can see that this is a very close approximation of the vintage figure, but the vintage figure's face, we can admit, it was a little wonky, and I think it's because of how big the heads were compared to those 5.5-inch figures, even on the Origins line right now, that when you try and make it more realistic, give it more realistic proportions, it doesn't quite look the same. Like, don't get me wrong, I don't think this is bad, and I think this is definitely as close to the vintage face portrait as they could get with a Masterverse figure, but it just looks a little off when compared to the Origins line or even the vintage figure. Like the hairstyle is the same, the facial expression is the same, the structure of the face is the same, but just something about it just looks off. Not to mention that it looks a little bit more pale compared to the rest of his body here. Like he was out with a tan and laid a blanket, a towel over his face so it wouldn't burn. But then you also get into the paint app of this, that you can see they tried to make him a little Rudy, try to add some depth and dimension, but sometimes it just comes off as dirty, like you can see there on the cheek and on the forehead. And I've seen different reviews of this figure. Some come out like this, some come out really well actually. But this one, yeah, I could have done without some of that staining right in there, which does make me think that with that Masterverse movie He-Man that's coming out, there is a vintage head that comes along with it. I'm really curious to see how that head is going to look on this body. But like we said, we get down to the torso here, and he is much, much buffer, especially in the chest, than any of the other Masterverse figures are. And this is what you want. You want these ridiculously huge proportions for your Masters of the Universe figures. Okay? We have his bracers here. This is a standard bracelet that pretty much all the Masterverse figures have. This, I believe, keep in mind, I don't have a lot of Masterverse, but I believe this is unique to this figure because it looks like the vintage line. I love the wash that they gave to his loincloth down here, giving it some depth, giving it some detail, something that this one doesn't really have. But then again, this one is just leather on the New Eternia version. This is fur, just like it was with the vintage figure. And it has a little bit of splits right here. It has some really good detail for that. And then we get down to the legs, and we get down to a little bit of that ruddiness down here in the legs too. Not nearly as bad as what's on his face, but I could have done without that coloring right in there. And then his boots that did a really good job on. The wrapping of the boots and putting a black wash on there to make the details stand out. I really like that. Like, my only real issue, and I wouldn't even call it a complaint, maybe I'm being a little bit of an apologist here for Mattel, is the ruddiness, the markings on his face. I could have done without that, and this really should be darker skin tone to match the rest of his body. Now that we've looked at all of that, let's get to the articulation, that the head will do a complete 360 spin. Not a whole lot of tilt side to side. Can't really look up, but he can look down. Arms will do a full 360 spin. They will come up fairly easily to 90. Bicep swivel. Double jointed elbows that just, there's too much meat there. He can't really close them like some other figures can. Wrists swivel and wrists pivot in and out. However, this wrist right here, for his sword holding hand, pivots up and down, which is fantastic, and we'll see how well that looks in a moment. But then, like I said, his power harness right here is hiding the cut of the ab so that he can get some twisting going on there. He can really, he can crank back fairly well. And they also did a really good job of keeping the ab work going up so that whenever he does stretch back, you don't really see a gapping. You just see his 8-pack, his continued 6-pack. He doesn't really crunch forward very well. That's about normal. That's back. That's forward. So going forward doesn't really do much. Going back does. But he also does have a waist twist right there. He can go all the way around right at the waist. Legs come up to the sides, not quite to 90, but this is a soft rubber, so it gets out of the way. Legs will come forward. Now this, even though it's soft, it is heavy that it will want to push the leg down after a while. Leg will go back. You probably saw the cut for the thigh swivel right there. Double jointed knees. Boot cut. Ankles rock back, way back. Ankles rock forward, way forward. And you have a forward-facing pin for some rocker. Coming out of the box, He-Man has 2 gripping hands that you've already seen. One that pivots in and out, one that pivots up and down. And his other hands include a clenched fist and an open palm for, I don't know, high-fiving man-at-arms. Now, a lot of the accessories that we're going to take a look at, you've probably seen already, and the majority of them I'm going to say you even saw when we looked at the New Eternia He-Man. That the power sword right here is pretty much the same power sword that came with the New Eternia He-Man. It's even bent in the same position, but the biggest difference is the material that it's made out of. Where this is just molded in a solid gray, the New Eternia power sword was molded in a silver and has the handle painted. Now, some people may be put off because it's like it's the 40th anniversary. Why didn't they put more deco on this one? And I get it. I get why they didn't. It's the 40th anniversary of He-Man. It's supposed to be a updated, a embiggened version of the vintage figure that came out. And the vintage figure sword was molded in a single gray color. So I get why they did that. I understand why they did that. Do I wish they would have painted this one up and made it silver the same as this one? Yeah, I absolutely do. So then I would have 2 matching halves of the power sword so that I can give one to Skeletor and have He-Man toting one around. But I do understand why they did it. Now he has this loop on the back of his harness that the power sword slides in so perfectly, like butter. Like, that looks great. And even when you turn him around, focus in, even when you turn him around, like, that really looks good. Like, just imagine being a kid again and shoving his half of the power sword down into the back of his harness, and that's pretty much the look that we had. That's so cool. Another piece that he comes with is his 2-headed battle axe, and just like with the power sword, this is the battle axe that we saw that came with the New Eternia He-Man. And I kind of dig having these 2 battle axes. Like, I might have my New Eternia He-Man set up dual-wielding axes now, because he's Viking He-Man. He's he would just look fantastic like that. But you can see that this was molded in a dull gray plastic, and this was molded in silver. And once again, we don't have any deco for the hilt, for the handle of the axe, which is kind of disappointing. And also, is it just me, or because this is more of like a flat gray color, it doesn't seem like the nicks and the detail stand out as much as it does in this one? I don't know. Like, this one just looks a little bit more plain, even though I know all the same detail and all the same nicks are in this one. Now, sometimes as kids, we would put the battle axe in the back of the harness while he was holding the sword and wielding the shield. And even with the New Eternia He-Man, you may have seen me put the axe in the back a few times. However, with this one, it doesn't quite work. You can see it stretches the harness and it's making it come unclasped, because that's all there is to clasping it. So unfortunately, whoop, it's stuck. Unfortunately, with this version, you can't put the axe in the rear harness, which, I don't know, that's a little bit of a bummer to me, but I don't think that's a big issue. And it does go back, it clicks back in very well. So that won't be a problem with it keeps coming apart. And then finally we have his shield, which I don't know if we've seen this version of a shield yet. And while my new Eternia He-Man didn't come with a shield, when I was at RetroCon, I picked up this one that I think this is from the Revelations Faker, maybe. And it's the same silver that matches the rest of the new Eternia He-Man items. But the one that came with the 40th anniversary is thicker. I like the innards. I like how it holds much better than this one. And it just looks more in line with, like, I don't mean this in a derogatory way, but like that trash can lid style shield that He-Man was carrying around in the 80s. Now, with this one, we bring this guy over, that he has an open grip hand right here for the shield, but it's kind of difficult to get it on there. So what I did was this. I popped the hand off, and then the hand and this handle are both very soft, that it's very easy. I gotta look around the camera to do this. It's very easy, I said easy, to get his hand around the shield, and then you just slide it over, and you pop it in. And there you go. That's the easiest way I found to get the shield on there. And he holds it real secure right there. So that's real cool. Now, one thing that I really liked, and he did this in the mini comics a few times, and he did this in the old DC comics a lot, was that sometimes when he was on Battle Cat or he was just walking around, he would have his shield slung on his back along with his sword or his axe. And I don't know if it was meant to do this, but I found that if you take it and you put it so that the handle is down like that, and then you take the power sword and you put it through the hook on his back, right there, he can have his sword and shield all ready to go on his back together. And that looks really cool. I really like that. So, like, when we do get a vintage style Masterverse Battle Cat, he can be all armed and armored up and ready to go. Now, for size comparison, here he is beside the only other two Masterverse figures I have is New Eternia He-Man and Skeletor. And you can see he's a smidge taller than even the New Eternia He-Man. Here he is beside McFarlane Toys DC Multiverse Superman from Action Comics 1000 and Black Adam movie Black Adam. Here he is beside McFarlane Toys Geralt of Rivia and Ciri from The Witcher 3. Here he is beside Hasbro G.I. Joe Classified Series Cobra Trooper and Heavy Artillery Roadblock. Here he is beside Lanyard Toys City Hunter Predator and Xenomorph Drone. Here he is beside Jazzware's Spartan Collection Master Chief and Noble 6. And finally, here he is beside NECA Toys and me from the Valaverse Action Force Steel Brigade. So what else is there to say? This is the vintage He-Man all grown up. How can you not love this figure? Especially if you're a child of the 80s, like moi. How can you not appreciate the fact that Mattel did this in the first place? Because when they came out with the Origins line, I really thought that was going to be it, that was going to be their throwback to the vintage He-Man. I didn't expect them to come out with a 40th anniversary birthday edition that is basically that Origins figure, that vintage figure in his, in his final form, in his all grown up form. I really, really love that Mattel did this. Now, having said that, it's not perfect. And we know that because the proportions for this figure do not translate very well to a more realistic looking figure. If for nothing else, like I keep going back to that face, I don't think it's bad, but there's just something about it that's a little off. And I do think it's because that the face that they came up with on the vintage figure, especially the way he was portrayed back in the 80s, was just a little wonky. But I really appreciate the effort they put into it, and I am very curious to see how that new head is going to look that's coming with the Masterverse movie figure. So I am glad that they made it, but this isn't going to be my display He-Man. I think that is still going to be the new Eternia He-Man. And luckily, Mattel thought forward that this figure fits very easily back into the packaging. So you can take him out, you can play with him, and then you can put him back in that fantastic looking box for storage to keep him in the box. It's very collector friendly packaging. I really appreciate when companies do that. Good job on you, Mattel, for that one. One thing that I really do like about these Masterverse figures is that the parts swap easily between the two of them. So this sword holding aloft hand that he has, holding his power sword up, you can take that and swap that onto any of your other Masterverse figures. Like for me, I can put that on my new Eternia He-Man so that he can hoist the sword, and that can be my display He-Man. The skin tone is a little different, but really, on a hand that's holding a sword, are you really going to be paying attention to that? So as I said, we do have more Masters of the Universe to take a look at this month. A lot of it being some Mega Construct sets that we haven't been able to take a look at yet. The Monstroid, Land Shark, the Slime Pit. We might even talk about Snake Mountain a little bit. So until that happens, my friends, play well, stay safe, stay healthy, and as always, thank you for watching.